You are running with the Devils, and we're back talking Arizona State football. I'm the Rhino, Ryan Knowles. Here with me, as always, Big John Caldwell. And Big John, it's rivalry week, it's hate week, it's
Uh-huh.
beat the Cats week here on Running with the Devils, and we're looking forward to that old rivalry, the duel in the desert down in Tempe, coming up this Saturday at kickoffs at 1 o'clock. We'll certainly be down there talking Arizona State football. We'll be down there for everything before the game down there in Lot 59 North under the two big electrical towers, as always, with our Valley Athletic Booster Club tailgate. We're looking forward to it. We can't wait.
Mariachis this week.
Oh, yes, yes. Cannot wait. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. We cannot wait. And this is the big game, John, the biggest game on the schedule, regardless of record. And we're going to be talking everything Arizona State football, everything ASU U of A. Here, going over our favorite Territorial Cup memories. What we got to cover this week, as always, as we like to say here on RWD, you give us 30 minutes, we give you the world of Arizona State football. So certainly like, comment, and subscribe to our page here, and stay up on everything Arizona State football as we bring it to you every single week here on RWD. And we got to start this week with last week's game. Not much of a game, Big John. ASU was dominated by the sixth-ranked Oregon Ducks, now ranked fifth in the nation, as they'll be, playing for a berth in the Pac-12 championship game, most likely this week, against their rival Oregon State in the Civil War. But they were not looking ahead. We speculated that they might, but they were not, and they jumped on the Devils early and often, and rode out to a 42-0 lead by half. They ended up winning 49-13. Not much of a game to speak of. We're not going to spend a ton of time on that. We'll cover the major points, but an ugly game all the way around, Big John. It's kind of becoming a little bit too commonplace here against some of these better teams, unfortunately.
No, we were right to think this might have been a trap game, but they were definitely firing on all cylinders. And to me, that's the mark of a, and I believe we honestly saw a Final Four team, a four playoff, top four playoff team. I thought their O-line.
They're talented and they're hungry. That's a dangerous combination. That's what the best teams are. And
I thought, their O-line.
This is why I don't think they're going to lose to Oregon State this week, even as good as Oregon State's been this year. Yeah. Oregon, their only loss this year was to Washington. They beat Oregon State. They tell me they're not chomping at the bit to get another shot at the Huskies in Vegas next Friday. So
no, they really. I know their fans were very buoyed by the the fact that
there were a lot of them. They definitely showed up and showed out.
Traveled. They traveled
well. Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah,
so I mean, we didn't really get a chance to talk about this last week, but athletic director Ray Anderson has resigned. The position's officially open, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that, on who fills the position is going to be leading the ASU athletic department going forward. And of course, it's rivalry week. We'll be talking everything ASU U of A. Talk about our favorite Territorial Cup memories here in a little bit. We'll get into everything in this game, certainly give it our full preview, as we always do, as the Devils battle a very good Wildcat team in Tempe on Saturday afternoon. We'll break it all down for you. But we're going to talk about this past week's game against the Ducks. ASU just, got out to a slow start. Oregon, as John said, was firing on all cylinders from the get-go. They go down, score on the first drive, and never look back, as Bo Nix, he lived up to that Heisman hype. He looks like the Heisman Trophy favorite at this point. Threw more touchdowns than incomplete passes, goes for over 400 yards, and he really only played, I believe, the first half. I don't think he played much in the third quarter, as he led the Ducks to a convincing win over the Devils. And Troy Franklin set a school record for most receiving yards in a season. He had himself another big game, 8 receptions, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns for that young man. He looks like a pro talent as well. As just moving on here and covering everything with this game, as Oregon, was mentioned, led 42-0 in the first half, over 600 total yards, 463 passing yards, 31 first downs, just insane video game type numbers put up by Bo Nix and company. And mentioned, they clinched a spot in the Pac-12 championship game with a win in the Civil War come this Friday. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this scenario because if Oregon loses to the Beavers on Friday, U of A can actually clinch a spot in the Pac-12 championship game with a win against U of A on Saturday. But again, I seriously doubt that's going to happen. I think Oregon is, like they said, they're hungry.
Mm-hmm.
They're chomping at the bit for another shot at Washington, who had their only loss against this year. So honestly, I think they're going to come out as fired up and just motivated as they did against us when they faced the Beavers on Friday.
Right, and if that O line of Oregon is firing like they were against us, that's a Final Four playoff team right there. That's the size and the execution is going to end up.
They certainly look like it, and we'll see kind of what happens with just as we break down. We don't talk too much about the national picture here, but we're going to, because we're college football fans. We're following what's going on around the country as always, and depending on what happens with Michigan, Ohio State, that could be an interesting one. We'll see what happens with Georgia in the conference championship game. I seriously doubt they're going to be outside the top four, but when this is all said and done, though, they're pretty much clinched at this point. But Michigan, Ohio State will certainly be an interesting game to watch, depending on who gets in the playoff there. Florida State's undefeated, but they're out now that their starting quarterback Jordan Travis is out for the year. They play Florida this week. If they win, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to keep them out with their record, even with a backup quarterback. But we'll see how things go, because they still have to play the ACC championship game as well with a backup quarterback. So a lot of storylines going into this rivalry weekend around the country, especially here at home with U of A potentially having a shot at the Pac-12 championship game. But again, I seriously doubt that's going to happen with the way Oregon's been playing lately.
And no matter what Jed Fish wants to say, they're not going to win the South, because there is no South, Jed.
There is no South anymore. There's no North or South anymore. It's just the top two teams in the Pac-12.
And yet he was saying things in the press this week where we know we've won the South, even though there isn't a South. It's like, huh? That's not what you have to do anymore. You have to be you can win the South and not be in that championship game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how things are now.
That's how things are, right, man? So lowered expectations, I guess.
Yes. And just putting the ball on this game, ASU really struggled offensively too. They were 3 of 14 on third down in this game. Even though they were 4 of 5 on fourth down, you still like to be a little bit better on third down. They put themselves behind the sticks way too much. Part of that was Oregon's defense. They were flying all over the place. They had themselves a good game. But ASU still has to execute a little better than they did. I mean, there were too many missed blocks, too many drop balls, just a lot of things that you really don't want to see ASU offense doing at this point in the season, when they should be, playing at a higher level than they did on Saturday. We kind of figured Oregon would come out and play well.
Yep.
But we still wanted to see ASU play a little bit more competitively than they did. I think that was the most frustrating part. Is a couple of the bright spots in this game. Trenton Bourguet had himself a decent game, 20 of 37, 142 yards. Elijah Badger just continues to be a bright spot on this team, even though just they have just 3 wins on the year. He's continues to ball out and play well. 7 receptions for 64 yards in this game. The lone touchdown, by the way, a 15-yard rush by wide receiver Melquan Stovall.
He's fast.
Good to see him get in the end zone. He's been playing well, much better of late. So it was good to see him get in the end zone.
But somebody sent me a whole bunch of pictures of Trenton under duress. I mean, how little time he had standing in the pocket. He had a little bit more time moving, but he was not mobile, and they knew that. So if they knew he wasn't going to take, they tried to flush him out of that pocket.
And they were pinning, but Oregon, to their credit, was pinning their ears back. They came after him very well. Gosh. And with reckless abandon.
Interior linemen were really
exactly. And they tried a few things. They moved, put Conyers and Bourguet and Scattaboo back there to try and take some of the pressure off Bourguet, not put him under fire quite so much.
Right.
tried the swinging gate with the the staggered offensive line, had him roll to that side to try and give him a little bit more time and take some pressure off of him with mixed results. Didn't Oregon? I think watched the film on the swinging gate. They were pretty much prepared for it.
They were just had to
ASU
stay home.
showed it and then shifted out of it a few times.
Correct.
So
well, they wanted to see if they were going man or zone, if they were staying in zone, or staying home in their positions or not. Yep.
Yeah, and that was one part that was Oregon certainly dominated in just about every facet of this game, but I think the preparation certainly was. I mean, they practically won the game before it even began with how prepared they were for what ASU was doing on offense. But as we do always after a defeat here on Runnin with the Devils, what we learned, presented by Valley Athletic Booster Club. For your to support local athletics, check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com.
ASU's only outside booster club.
Yes, and they're doing some really great work, and certainly support this as great organization. And what I learned, and I talked about this to a certain extent during certain points of the season, but when the Devils defense is kind of the engine that runs this team, and if they're not on point, the team struggles. I mean, there was virtually no pass rush on Bo Nix, and part of that is we talked about parts of Oregon's offensive line, that right side. There's a couple of pro prospects there, but also the tackling was subpar. I mean, they made Bucky Irving look like Reggie Bush out there with the way he was dodging tacklers and getting upfield. And then, you talk about Patrick Herbert on that screen pass, just going down the sideline untouched practically. Gary Bryant Jr. on that 70-yard touchdown off a screen, basically ran through half the defense. I mean, the defense just looked uninspired at times, and their technique was terrible. Just a game you really want to flush at this point because of how bad the team looked on both sides of the ball, but especially defense. And that's kind of the straw that stirs the drink on this team. The defense isn't performing. I'm not even talking about turnovers. I'm just talking about getting stops, holding them to field goals, just keeping everything in front of them, not allowing big plays. And that's been something ASU's done very well for the most part this year. But in losses to Utah and now to Oregon, they've given up big plays. They've kind of let things get away from them very quickly, and it's turned into games like this, unfortunately.
The four big 4th and 1s that we were able to stop at UCLA were huge. I mean, I think that fired up the whole defense. Can fire up the offense, and as you say,
definitely
defense can as defense can set the tone for offense. And because we were not able to stop them in 4th down, it really sort of said, okay, we physically can't beat these guys. We can't stop them.
Yeah.
So
that was very frustrating. It was very frustrating to watch. But and then as far as the offense goes, you have to execute. You have to move the chains to be successful. ASU kind of got behind the chains way too much in this game, and again, part of that is Oregon's defense is very good. They have some legit pro prospects on that team, but at the same time, ASU's got to they got to catch balls. They got to block. They got to do some basic things, basic football plays that every team needs to do just to be on the field, just to be successful to a certain extent. And those are things that they really struggled with, especially in the first half. And there's things you have basic things that you have to do as a football player, to play the game, just plain and simple. And that's some of they just failed to come out and do on Saturday.
Yep. Well, for me, it was. I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying, but I'm asking you a couple of questions, and they're rhetorical questions, but I think I can answer them.
There's still ones that need to be asked. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, what have we learned? Well, the poor tackling, and I'm openly asking, was that a sign of quitting? And the question becomes, for that game, have they quit in terms of the season? I don't believe so. I think they still believe in their coach, the mission. They're still bought in. I don't see them going out and quitting on U of A. It's just there's a lot of young guys who don't know what's going on with U of A yet. They've never been in that game. Maybe we have 40 what, 43, 44, 45 freshmen. There's a lot of people that have no idea the importance of this, but
Sure.
but they spend a lot of time, I know, in practice and on film, showing them how big of a game this is for everybody. Our fragile, obviously, we learned that, because of the fragility of Trenton and his lack of mobility at this point, it led to quarterback by committee. I think he's going to be healthier this week. In fact, I'm going to go out there and we'll talk about the next about who's going to play in the rivalry game here at quarterback in a minute, that situation. But
Right.
I saw a lot of, receivers not catching balls. What is that a sign of? Preparation or lack of focus? I've talked to coaches and they're catching balls in practice. I think that's clearly a lack of focus. It's something to do when the lights are on and the pressure is on. They're worried about, because remember, you're not hitting in practice. You're limited so much to so few hours of live hitting that receivers not being able to get, being tackled to ground in practice or hit harder than thud in practice may be part of the problem here. But every team has this problem that and Oregon, for instance, must have drills to get around this, or must, as far as how they're conditioning their players. And again, I thought it was very irritating to me on at least two or three of the third down long passes where we weren't even going throwing to the marker. Yeah, I think we've got to design plays to get past, because on a tough team like Oregon, or if people are going to pick that up, on film, that you're not running those plays, and they're just going to come up and camp on you. They're not going to, and they're probably going to run a lot more man and a lot more press than they are zone in situations like that. So
Sure.
I just think that I don't, to answer my own rhetorical questions, I don't think while they did quit, I don't know. I don't think they quit in general. And a lack of focus, yeah, definitely a lack of focus in the game. I think if this is a big area of concern. I mean, we're quite frankly, we're going to go through the woulda, coulda, shoulda of how many good receivers like X and people who are not playing right now. Um, but we do have a lot of quality players out there. Guys like Stovall, I think, guys like Geo Sanders. We just got to figure out how to get them in a situation, how to get the balls in their hands. Um, so we'll talk about
Badger.
that. Badger, obviously, he's beyond reproach. Yeah, but even Badger drops balls.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a wrap on him come draft time, I think.
Right.
So
We'll see. But that's our what we learned, presented by Valley Athletic Booster Club. Support local athletics by going to valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And we get into the rivalry week here. It's always a great time of the year. Love talking some of our favorite Territorial Cup memories and moments. For me, being an ASU student, I always have some great memories. ASU went 3-0 in my time on campus at ASU from 05 to 07. Those were some of my favorite games. I went down to Tucson for the first time in 2006. Saw Rudy Carpenter, Zach Miller and company really take it to the Cats.
Mm-hmm.
The Cats who were playing really well at the time, and they jumped out to a nice lead. ASU got up, I believe, 21-0 at one point, and then had a great defensive effort in the second half to pull away and win 28-14. That was the game that Keegan Herring nailed the punter on special teams, who tried to soccer dribble his way out of trouble on a botch snap. And that was ultimately Dirk Cutter's last game as the head coach. But nobody can argue with his record against U of A. He did have an excellent record against the Cats. And I can go back to the year before when I was in the student section for the first time in this game, when ASU was down early. Willie Tuitama got knocked out, and then Terry Richardson with the big punt return right down the sideline to take it to the house, and I swear that place erupted after that happened, and it was just bedlam in the stands.
I literally tears came to my eyes after that play.
That was a huge moment.
It was a huge emotion moment.
And that was great to see. And then the 2-point conversion to Zach Miller ties the game, and then ASU drives down and Jesse Ainsworth kicks a chip shot field goal as time expires.
Love that guy.
Win the
Love
game.
that guy.
That was a great moment. And I mean, you just go through the years of some of these great games. Obviously 2010 in Tucson with.
That's one of mine. Yeah.
Yep.
I got
absolutely.
3. I got 1996, 2010, and 2012 marked down here.
Yeah. Who could forget 96? Even after we clinched the Rose Bowl, taking it to the Rats down there, 56-14, and it wasn't even that close, to be honest. They kind of called the dogs off. Refs were calling phantom penalties and all that. I think ASU kind of wanted to put up 70 against them. If you talk to my buddy Juan Roque, and he's got some stories about some of their games, especially in the years before when they lost like 3 or 4 years before that in a row to U of A by just the narrowest of margins, some of the most fluke plays you'd ever see, and then to go out there and that justification, all that pent up frustration, that year in '96, kind of righting some of the wrongs from the year before. On their way to the Rose Bowl and Pac-12 championship. That was a great moment. I always remember, 2000. I mentioned 2010, but 2012 is another great one.
That's my third. Some of
the best ones always seem to take place in Tucson.
Two blocked extra points.
Yes, that was 2010, and 2010. James Brooks. Skying up. I mean, one of them he blocked. Another one, Alex Zendejas actually kicked into the back of his offensive lineman, and it kind of ricocheted off to the side. Brock Osweiler hitting Mike Willie and the pose. The pose that was great. They always show that on the highlight reels. And just Brock leading the team the way he did in that game, getting them all together at the end of the third quarter, firing everybody up. And the way that game ended, that was one of the most insane endings I've ever seen. It's just kind of how crazy and random this rivalry can be. Records go out the window, numbers go out the window, everything kind of goes out the window. You never really know what's going to happen in a game like this, especially when you look back at, 2012 is a perfect example. Back to Tucson again. Cats were ranked like 24th, 25th. They were, really playing well at the time. Matt Scott, Austin Jones, Caleb Jones, I forget that they had another good receiver. They had some really good players on those teams. Kadeem Carey, the running back, it was setting all kinds of school records.
He had a tell. Kadeem Carey, his tell was not so much what he would do. It was actually how the O-line would make their sets. And when I talk about sets, it's the distance apart the feet are for the O-lineman.
Right.
And so wherever he was going in that game, the O-lineman would just be a half a step further over on that side. And he was going up that A gap or B, typically the A gap, but he was a B gap runner too. But,
and they did a good job. They really did a good job shutting him down in the second half. I mean, because U of A had a 2-score lead going into the fourth quarter, and then we talked about this before the game. Matt Scott starts leading the team down for another score to basically put the game out of reach, and Keelan Johnson basically holds up Matt Scott when he was on a run, rips the ball out. It goes like 20 yards the other direction. The car eventually falls on it, and ASU was able to drive it down for a score. They get a stop on the next drive. Kevin Ayers comes through for a blocked punt. Cameron Marshall scores a touchdown. And then Robert Nelson picks off Matt Scott on the next to take it down inside the 5, and then ASU ultimately was able to ice the game at that point. I mean, UVA did score kind of a garbage touchdown at the end to make it close. Yeah. But ASU recovers the onside kick, and then that's ball game. That was another, just tremendous thriller of a game. And we seem to have so many in this rivalry. You go back to 2017 was another great game here in Tempe when N'Keal Harry just basically took over.
Yeah.
Late game, they just Manny Wilkins just basically threw it up to him a couple of times, and he just
back shoulder fades.
Did what he did just out. Was a better athlete, but then the guy across from him goes up and gets the ball, and that was all it was. And they were coming in with a lot of hype then too, because Khalil Tate had been having some great games leading up to that point. He goes out right at the end of the first half. Suddenly, U of A can't move the ball, and ASU capitalized, and that was another great game. And then the next year, 2018, Herm Edwards' first year in the rivalry. Manny Wilkins is a senior. Benjamin goes off for a couple nice runs. U of A has that 40-21 lead going into the fourth quarter, and ASU fights their way back and ends up winning 41-40.
Wide right.
Oh yeah, Haversack. Oh man, God, and I was in the stands for that game, and oh my goodness gracious, that was the range of emotions that I went through in that game.
I sat with some of the boosters, and one gal, I'm not gonna tell you who it was, but she goes, "Just peed my pants." On the wide right.
Oh man,
I told you they were coming back.
That was seriously one of the craziest games ever. I was thankful to be there for that game, but oh my goodness gracious! And then, going to College Bar and hanging out after the game to kind of recapping everything that happened is just wow. That was crazy. And then of course, Benjamin with a backflip to celebrate. N'Keal Harry, we kind of knew that was going to be his last game. Kind of going around the fans. They had the cup. Holding out the cup. I got to touch the cup too when it was coming by. I was standing right there. So, oh man, there's a lot of fun memories with this rivalry. It's been a trip, that's for sure, over the years. Recapping.
Now I'm just going to show you back here in my office. You see that painting by Christopher Roach? That's John Jefferson, the catch. That's 73. Can you see that?
No. Oh, there we go. Yeah, now I see it.
John Jefferson catch 73.
Oh, who could forget that? Another great moment. That was a little bit before my time, but just some great moments this game has produced.
Christopher Roach is texting me right now.
You got Demario. You got Demario Richard, the bring it on. You got Benjamin with the great finishing block in 2019.
I've got one more though. We're going to end it on this.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
One more.
Uh-oh.
This is the penultimate. You ready?
70-7.
There you go, baby. Billboard material.
Oh man. I don't think ASU fans will ever let U of A live that down. Honestly, ever. I mean, I know, it was the COVID year, and U of A had their lame duck coach in Kevin Sumlin, who was 0-3 against the Devils, by the way.
That's right.
I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was 0-3. But just hey, Khalil Tate 0-4. How's that Heisman looking?
How's that Sports Illustrated Jinx holding up? Yeah.
Oh man, it's so easy. It's so easy making fun of the U of A fans with their, and the city of Tucson in general. I mean, usually we only go down there about once every 2 years for the game, but yeah, it's hard, man. It's such a hole, and people. I don't know. I understand having pride in your city, but the people down there, I don't know. They seem kind of diluted when it comes to Tucson, and just like I get it. Some of the communities around Tucson, Marana, Canyon del Oro Valley, San Luis. I think that might be another one. I forget.
Yeah.
But they're, those are some pretty nice communities to live in. But you talk about the city of Tucson itself. I mean, you go a few blocks off campus in the wrong direction, and I hope you brought your Kevlar.
Is it
ain't pretty?
Is it time for Ryan's U of A jokes?
Oh, I think it is, and I go back and forth on which ones, because I have U of A jokes and I have Tucson jokes, and they're both equally. I probably have an equal number of both, but obviously, you can make fun of U of A all the live long day, especially with the history of their football program. But they've had their stretches like the Desert Swarm under Dick Tomey, obviously they're having success right now with Jed Fish, but they've always struggled to have sustained success. Is the thing I'm talking about, like 5-6 years in a row. It always seems like they'll have 2 or 3 and then be back to mediocrity. And one of the things I like to tease, going back to the 2010 game. One of the best things that I heard coming out of that game was, why can you never win an argument with a U of A fan? Because they're always trying to make an extra point.
Yeah.
And why should you never make change with a U of A football player?
This is
you only get 3 quarters.
There you go. There you go, Bucky.
And I hope we get another fist fight between Wilbur and Sparky like we did last year. That was fun. That was great to watch. It happened right by us too last year.
I kind of you watch
even that. Even though we lost the game, we won the fight. So
we won the social media coverage, I think.
Yeah.
Which is what I think it was all about, quite frankly. But yeah. It looked pretty staged. In retrospect, it was definitely staged. But hey,
it was fun to watch. It was fun. One more great Territorial Cup memory I got to go to, of course. 2021, Jack Jones taking that pick 6 to the house and firing the ball up into the stands. Yeah, he got penalized, and he's laying on his back. Yeah. But oh man, that was a great moment. And then
right in front of the students, right in front of the students.
When the game was over, the team taking the cup and going into the stands and celebrating with the student section.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was a great moment. Unfortunately, our last win against U of A 2 years ago, but still a great moment, and one that I'll always remember as great. And you got Jaden Daniels. We have mixed feelings about him now being at LSU, but he always had a great success against U of A, with what he did, those 3 years. That long touchdown run that he had against them in 2021 was fun to watch, and then that hitting the back shoulder to Ricky Pearsall to basically put the game out of reach was great as well. And then that 21 game always sticks in my mind because right in front of me, when they had that punt and they got called for holding and called for a safety right there. I mean, that was a good play. That was a fun game. That was a good time. I was sitting with a bunch of friends in the stands, and we just had a great time at that game. That was fun.
It's the kind of game where the coach always wants you to play with passion, but not over the line, right? You have to really watch it, and then.
But I mean, you go back and you look at this history of this game, and it's true. Numbers, records, they all go out the window because U of A's come up and shocked ASU a few times. I mean, you look at I'll even go back to 2004 when ASU was with Andrew Walter. They looked like they were going to roll over U of A with Mike Stoops in their first year. They'd only won like 2 games coming into that game, and then Andrew Walter gets hurt. Matt Miller has a bad drop, and U of A shocks ASU. I mean, it really didn't change ASU's bowl because they were pretty much headed to the Sun Bowl anyway at that point. But you still never want to lose to U of A, especially when they were ranked that much lower. They were just not a very good team that year. But that's always seems to be the mark of U of A. Even when they have bad teams, they always seem to pull one win out a year that they're not supposed to win. And that ASU game in 2004 was that one. They always seem it's always Oregon or USC or UCLA. Always a really good ranked team that they come up and beat. They catch at a bad time and kind of salvages their season and buys their coach one more year. A lot of times that was especially the case under Mike Stoops. They always seem to do that with Mike Stoops. And it was always a weird thing with U of A. They always seem to win one game a year they're not supposed to, and it always salvage their season even when they had bad teams. But 2011 was another one. ASU starts out really great. They beat Missouri that year. They beat USC that year. They had a really great team, and then the second half of the season they kind of fall off. Suddenly they can't play any defense. That there's a big schism in between the offense and the defense. But after that, a certain incident at UCLA, and they fell off after that game. And ASU actually had a lead late in that game, and they let Nick Foles and company basically take it over. And I mean, nobody really saw that one coming either. Especially on paper, ASU was the superior team. Again, things tend to go out the window in this game. Just weird things tend to happen. And U of A was ranked in 2010 too when ASU beat them in Tucson. With that block extra point. Weird things happen.
Two extra points.
Yeah, two. Beg your pardon. So, weird things tend to happen in this game, and you never really know what. And that's kind of the mystery. I mean, this is one of the oldest rivalries in college football. It's the oldest trophy in all of college football.
Did you know this?
It's got a lot of history and a lot of weird, just odd things happen that you never really expect.
Here's a great piece of trivia. The first U of A ASU game, the forward pass was not allowed.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's right. Yeah, that tells you how old it was. I mean, both these, I don't even think these schools didn't even have the same names that they have now. I know ASU didn't. Yeah, U of A probably didn't even either.
Well, same uniforms. Same uniform for U of A.
Right.
It was the one that fell off the truck. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and I'll even go back. I mean, the most random people will come in and make plays when you least expect it. I talked about Kevin Ayers. I mean, he was a special teams player who didn't really do much, and he comes in and makes himself a Territorial Cup legend with that blocked punt. I forget who it was. I think it was Stanley Lambert who drew that safety on the holding on the punt. In 2006, Jamal Lewis, who was making the transition from tight end to wide receiver, he'd been in the doghouse all year. He makes a big touchdown catch in that game. So never really know. Somebody random could just step up and make a big play, and they get etched into the history of this rivalry.
I was going to say you can have a pretty mediocre career, but have a great Territorial Cup game, and you're going to live in the annals of that school's history.
You get remembered. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So
it's just that
we're looking forward to it. We always look forward to this game, win, lose, or draw. We always go down to Tucson for the game. We certainly did last year for this game. ASU, I think, is looking for a little payback because, and the other thing too about this game last year, that was when we found out Kenny Dillingham was going to be the head coach. During the game, we got word that Kenny Dillingham was going to be the new head coach at ASU at the time too. So. A lot of memories, a lot of history with this game and this trophy and this rivalry. So definitely looking forward to. Hopefully, somebody's up. I hope somebody's up on the mountain watching that because that still happens.
Yeah, tonight's the night for this.
Yeah.
A couple days. Well, that's the freshmen, right? Freshmen got to go.
That's supposed to be their responsibility.
That's the tradition. That's their responsibility.
But we got so many transplants now. They're probably all heading home for the holiday. But
yeah, I'm say.
A lot of great memories, a lot of great time. I mean, I remember my time at ASU very fondly. Always, getting up for the U of A game, always was a good time. Like I said, my first time down to Tucson for the game was when I was a student there in 2006. Covered the game on the sidelines in that year and 2007. So, just a lot of good times, a lot of good memories with some good people and. Looking forward to some more this week. Hopefully ASU can make it a good one. Moving on, as we get into U of A, the rivalry, obviously, there's hi Wilma. ASU going up against this Wildcats team that's really skirting expectations. They are definitely playing very good ball right now. Jed Fish has them playing very well. Especially defensively, they're 8-3 right now, ranked 15th in the college football playoff rankings, 6-2 in the conference. Jed Fish now in his third year in Tucson. That number's kind of skewered because his first year there they were 1-11, and their only win was against a COVID-plagued Cal team. They even lost to NAU that year. I think that was 21. Yeah, it was 21 when they lost to U of A. The one lost to NAU during the non-conference. But they have wins over 4 ranked teams this year. And this is a team that's playing very, very well right now on both sides of the ball. What more can you say? I mean, they've really turned things around these past couple of years and made themselves a competitive, legitimate team. Doing things the right way. They brought in some young guys. They got some really good sophomores on this team. There's a lot of really good impact sophomores, and they've hit the transfer portal well. They got a couple nice guys, especially on the D line, who are playing very, very well. As this team's really turned themselves into a more complete team, whereas before they'd always been, very strong offensively, scored a lot of points, but also gave up a lot. Now they've become a lot more balanced, as teams are supposed to be here in college football, and their defense is playing about as well as it has. It's in recent memory, that's for sure.
Well, they put together four really top good games. Probably five.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at what they did against Utah last week, jumping out to that 28-0 lead. They're playing about as well as any U of A team in recent memory, frankly.
Yeah. We talked so much about how
bad they've been, through the years, especially under Kevin Sumlin. They'd have a couple good games and then kind of fall off. But I mean, their losses this year, they lost in overtime at Mississippi State, lost to a very good Washington team, and then that game at USC, which they lost in 3 overtimes, and they only lost by 7 to Washington. So this is a very, very good team. They beat Washington State convincingly. They only won by 3 against Oregon State, but they played very, very well against UCLA. Only gave up 10 points to the Bruins. Then they edge out Colorado in Boulder, and then destroyed Utah last week. So this is a very good team right now.
They appear to be getting better as the year's gone on, as far as execution.
Yeah, and they've won in a lot of different ways. They've been able to put points on the board against some teams. They've won some defensive battles as well. So, and the roles have been reversed. I mean, it looked like ASU was kind of the up and comer a couple of years ago. It looked like they were on their way to being a legit competitor in the Pac-12, and now it's U of A. And U of A, their roles are reversed. Whereas U of A was on the down, one of the bottom dwellers of the conference, and kind of trying to build their way back up. Whereas ASU was near the top. Now the roles are reversed. But give Kenny Dillingham a couple years. He could certainly do things just like Jed Fish and turn this program into a competitor once again.
Well, I'm just going to say
a little more time.
I think Kenny's football IQ and acumen and play calling is way past where Jed Fish was.
I've talked about this on the show before.
When he took
look
over.
At Jed Fish's time at Michigan and UCLA. I mean, UCLA, he was a little bit better. He kind of learned from his mistakes at Michigan, because he was not very good at Michigan. He was disliked severely by that fan base. I have friends who were Michigan fans, and they hated him when he was the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator. They hated his tendencies. They hated his, when he had the play calling duties, and then they got taken away from him. And maybe that's just, it's a Big Ten thing. His style really didn't fit in the Big Ten necessarily.
Right.
But and he did have some success at UCLA, but the thing with him at the Bruins is he was only there. I mean, he was there, 3 years. So I mean, he did have, and he was the interim coach for a little bit when Jim Mora was let go.
Correct.
But even then, he only had a modicum of experience and success, and after that, he was after his time at UCLA, he was only there for 1 year. Then he goes to the Rams and is kind of an assistant. He's like an assistant coach. He was a senior offensive assistant OC. Then he goes he's in 2020. He was the Patriots quarterbacks coach before he got hired here. So I mean, he hasn't really stayed anywhere long enough to really get a legitimate chance. I mean, you look at his resume. The longest time he was anywhere was with the Ravens in the mid 2000s. He was an offensive assistant there for 3 years, and then it was just year after year he's taken a different job. He's only there for about 2 years, but I mean that's the life of an assistant coach, anyways. You're usually moving around quite a bit, unless you're really have a rapport going with the head coach. Usually you're moving on to trying to get the next job that's going to get you the bigger job. But I mean, now he's a head coach and he's doing really well with them. I mean, I'll give him kudos. He's done very, very well with this program. Turned them around in 3 years, turned them into a legit ranked team, and you can't argue with their track record. They played very, very well this year.
And for an offensively oriented assistant coach, you've got to give him credit for figuring out how to bring the right people in to run his deep and recruit and portal the right kind of defense.
The continuity there, I think, has been a big thing because that was the other thing with U of A teams. They were always seemed like they were always firing their assistant coaches mid-season. They were always turning guys over. He's had the same offensive coordinator all 3 years he's been there, Brennan Carroll, and this is his second year with the defensive coordinator Johnny Nansen, and their records speak for itself. They're doing very, very, very well right now. Certainly about as well as U of A's done probably since 2017 when they were last. I think that was about the last time they were ranked. Yeah, they're doing real well right now. And a big reason why is their offense. They actually made a change at quarterback when Jaden DeLaura, who was a starter last year, the Washington State transfer, kind of, if we go, thank you, John. Their offense has kind of, taken a step forward under new quarterback Noah Fafita. They're putting up 32 points a game, 284 passing yards a game. But the big thing has been their rushing attack at 154 yards a game. It's, that's very, very, very impressive. That's kind of what I think has been the keys to their success this year has been their running game. But Noah Fafita is actually managing the game really well. Jaden DeLaura was a little bit more of a gunslinger. It was a little more turnover prone. And when he got hurt and Fafita stepped in and played as well as he did, I think that's kind of when things turned and U of A took the next step. And he's having himself a nice year. He's played in 10 games. I think he's only started like 7 or 8.
Right.
But he put up nice numbers, 74% completion. I mean, that's what you're looking for out of your quarterback. Almost 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns against just 4 interceptions. He's not much of a scrambler, and he has been sacked 14 times this year. But when you give him time, he's been able to find his receivers, and he's been the beneficiary of a solid running game. You look at what Jonah Coleman has done, the true sophomore. 118 carries, 834 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he's also been a good receiver out of the backfield. 23 catches, 282 yards, and a touchdown. He's been a big surprise and a big reason why this offense has been as successful as it has. And you pair him with DJ Williams, we kind of figured that because U of A had a couple of established running backs when Jed Fish got here in Michael Wiley and Rayshawn Luke, but with you throw in the additions of Jonah Coleman and now DJ Williams, who's also having himself a nice year and is a nice complimentary back, 79 carries, 345 yards, and 4 touchdowns. You pair them. Michael Wiley's not listed on here, but he's been, he hasn't really carried the ball as much, only 51 carries for 226 yards, but he's been a big threat as a receiver. He's actually the team's 6th leading receiver as basically the third down back. 26 receptions, 271 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns as a running back. So they're getting a lot of production out of their running back position. That room is about as good as I think anybody in the conference at this point. And but their receiving core has been very, very good. And Teteroa and McMillan, who wasn't even a starter at the beginning of the year, has really come on and played extremely well. 69 receptions, 976 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He wasn't really expected to be. He was kind of expected to be the third receiver, but he's turned himself into the primary focus in the passing game because they also had Jacob Cowing, and Cowing was on a bunch of preseason watch lists.
Right.
With he was on. Let's see. I think I have it here. He was on the Horning Award, the Bolitnikoff Award, the Maxwell Award, all on the preseason watch list. And he's having himself a nice year, 74 catches, 539 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's also a very good returner on special teams. But he's kind of taking a backseat to McMillan's success this year. And part of that is teams are, shading coverage to Cowling's side. McMillan has kind of been the beneficiary as well. Cowling certainly looks like the more of the pro prospect. But they're still getting a lot of production out of this receiving room as well.
Yeah.
Especially
Fafita,
with a new quarterback.
yes, Fafita to Cowling is really the combo right there.
Yeah, and then you throw in, tight end Tanner McLaughlin, who is having himself a nice year as well. 35 catches, 440 yards, 2 touchdowns, and one of the biggest changes to this, because U of A, they have never really been very strong on the offensive line.
There you go.
Too.
There you
and
go.
They got a couple of guys in Jordan Morgan and Jonah Sabanea who look like they could be legit NFL guys. And guard Raymond Polito, who's a true freshman and has been playing very well of late as well. So this offensive line is a lot stronger than in years past. That was kind of one of the things that held U of A back was their weakness on the offensive line.
Right.
It's become a strength this year. That offense, top to bottom, is about as good as you can ask.
Yeah, well, and I keep in watching film, I'm very impressed with their O-line. I'm very impressed with their D-line, but I would have to say their D-line is probably further ahead than their O-line. And I think you can make the same thing for us. But if you had to line up all 4 lines between the two teams, I think our D-line is probably a better matchup with this O-line, and their D-line is probably so you're looking at 2 good or better D-lines as being going against weaker O-lines. And then if you have anything to pick apart here, but having said that, they have made big gains, and they've done some of this through the portal, and the big portal gains have come on the defensive side. We'll get into that next.
Yeah, and their defense, this has also been a weakness of U of A in the past. They were, there was a far cry from that Desert Swarm of the early '90s.
Oh yeah,
they had really been, just a sieve. You make all the jokes you want. More lanes than the I-10. They were trying to, they had always, they've always hired offensive coaches who struggled to get the most out of their defense. And,
they're no Dick Tomey.
Yeah, right. Even when they had a defensive coach in Mike Stoops, his defenses were never really that good, to be honest. Yeah. And but they've been much better this year. Allowing only about 20 points a game. I mean, you go down the line and see what they did against some of these teams that are really good. I mean, they did struggle against Stanford in the conference opener. They beat them 21-20.
Right.
They only gave up 6 points to Washington State. Only gave up 10 points to UCLA. They only 18 to Utah. So I mean, they've given up had some great defensive efforts this year, and a big reason why has been their this kind of the quarterback of the defense is the weak side linebacker Jacob Manu.
Yeah, very good.
98 tackles on the year, 8.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, and an interception. This is a guy who's just, really jumps out at you.
Makes plays. Yep.
Tackling machine, fills up the stat sheet, all that good stuff. And he, in this 4-3 modified 4-3 scheme, it's kind of a 4-3-3-4 hybrid. They play what's called a cat linebacker, who's kind of a pass rush defensive end linebacker hybrid on the outside, who also can drop into coverage. And they play boundary and field safeties as well. And Dalton Johnson has had a nice year himself. He's kind of, if you had to say, he's kind of the strong safety of the group. 65 tackles, 2 sacks, and he'll get after it. He forced 3 fumbles on the year as well. So, this defense has got some playmakers on it, which is something that, they really struggled to have. I mean, the last U of A playmaker I really remember was Scooby Wright.
Yeah.
And that was almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So this defense has got some players on it. And,
is he still in the USFL? Scooby?
Probably.
Is he out now? Yeah.
Probably. He's probably one of those. I know he hung around the NFL a little bit with Cleveland and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
But looking at this, you mentioned the defensive front.
Mhm.
This U of A team, and Taylor Upshaw has been their big pass rusher as well. 10.5 tackles for loss, 8
Yep.
sacks on the season, and then that cat linebacker that I mentioned, Isaiah Ward, he's having himself a nice year as well. 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. And so another guy that I didn't mention on here, who's kind of become the key to this team, their ability to make plays, is the nose tackle Bill Norton, who's a senior transfer.
Yeah.
Kind of a space eater, doesn't
Yeah.
really fill up the stat sheet as much, but more what he does, opening up things for other guys, that he's really known for, and that's where his impact is. He's hard to miss. Number 45, he's a big
Yeah.
dude.
He's a big dude. He's wide.
That D line is about as good as they've had in Tucson in some time.
Yeah.
So
Very,
definitely got to watch out for them. And then their nickel corner, Traydon Stukes, is kind of their one of their best pass cover guys. He'll also come after it on the blitz around the edge. He's got 3 tackles for loss, interception, and 8 pass deflections on the year. So he'll definitely get after it. And these are some of their other guys in this secondary have played very well this year as well. They have a Gunnar Maldonado, feels like he's been there forever. Their other safety.
Yep.
And then the senior transfer Dylan Wyatt, and they have another corner. I cannot make this name up. I'll just mention him for his name alone.
Oh, you're like this.
Ephesians Prysock. That is a name. I mean, that's a Key and Peele football name right there.
Right. Yeah.
Ephesians Prysock.
Make the All-Star.
So this defense from top to bottom has definitely improved and taken big steps. They recruited the transfer portal very, very well. And I mean, they even have one of the Uiagalelei brothers as the backup defensive end as well. And another guy on this D line, Russell Davis II, is the son of the former Cardinals D lineman as well. So some legacy guys here. This is a legit, especially when you look at the size of some of them. They look like a legit D1 defense, which is something that, again, U of A has always struggled to recruit and bring in and have on this side of the ball. And that a lot of things are changing. It's not the same. It's not just same old Wildcats. They certainly looked the part. What they've done to some of these teams is no fluke.
Yeah.
And they're going to be coming into Tempe, out for blood, because this rivalry game, especially the way it ended last year, that fight on the sidelines, U of A wants to come out and play well and kind of stick it to ASU in their own home stadium.
The thing I like the most about this game is that you have an entire season to see them on film and their tendencies and how they behave in certain during adversity or during and so you get to I talked about tells earlier. You get to see a lot of stuff on film on how receivers break down TVs, how linemen, how they behave when they're double teamed. So that this team is our team is all about preparation and film study. You saw it against UCLA. It's the latest example. It gives me hope that they will figure out, because we got some great football minds on this program, on this staff, guys. I mean, and not just football minds, but people who understand how to talent and recruiting. I mean, I'm just telling you, if we keep this group together, we'll be so much further beyond where U of A is in 3 years, way beyond them. I'm telling you right now.
Looking forward to it.
If you have we had a kid today who flipped from U of A to ASU.
He was originally committed to U of A. That's right.
That's my point.
Yeah, the offensive lineman from Hamilton. Yes.
And I'll just tell you why. He can see he loves the coach he's going to play for here, and he also loves the upside potential of being able to get coached up, and he's going to get playing time. So and if you
there should be a place for him to potentially start next year.
Yeah.
You look at Sean Na'an, the impact he's making right now as a true freshman. So I mean, he's good enough, and he's a specimen. He's a big kid at it's like 6'5", 340 as a true freshman. So
remember what we've said, folks.
He's gonna have a chance here.
you can't recruit yourself into a great offensive line through the portal. You've got to do it through building classes
Yeah.
of your own players.
And that was the mistake. I'll go back to when Cutter was here. He always had abilities to recruit good offensive linemen, but
Yes, he did.
He did some. He had a lot of junior college kids.
Sure.
A lot of times.
That was the portal back then.
Really. Yeah, true. But I still like what and Kenny Dillingham. He's been relying on the transfer portal for offensive linemen just because they had so many transfer and leave early, and the cupboard was especially bare when he got here. But and by necessity they had to go to the transfer portal for some of these kids. But yeah, I like what he's doing. He's making offensive line a priority in the recruiting. And hopefully he'll be able to continue to build that up with some younger guys that will develop and turn into something 2-3 years down the road. So moving on to our keys to the game this week, presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace, great organization that builds beds for families in need. Check out Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And for me, I'll start on the defense. With the defense, you got to flatten the cats. Make U of A's offense one-dimensional, and you got to stop the run, because this team, they use the run to set up the pass. Fafita, he's only got 7 starts under his belt, so doesn't have a ton of experience, but he's playing like a guy beyond his years. But if you put some pressure on him, force him into some bad throws, you give yourself a good shot on Saturday. And that was something that they really struggled to do against Oregon. So I got a feeling that the focus this week is going to be on the pass rush, putting some pressure on Fafita. Hopefully they can do it up the middle, because those tackles are very talented. So it's going to be tough to get pressure from the outside. But ASU's success in the pass rush this year has been bringing linebackers up the A gap.
Right.
They can do that, and they can get home, because they tried to do that against Oregon. They couldn't get home. If they can do that against U of A, make them struggle to pick up the blitz. I like ASU's chance to put some pressure on Fafita and hopefully force some mistakes. And then on offense, you got to scheme and execute. That's kind of been, ASU's kind of taken this non-linear, indirect approach with their offense. Trying some different things to keep protecting Trenton Bourget. Using some shock plays with Cameron Scatterbo and Jalen Conyers at quarterback. But at the same time, though, that's all well and good. And I hope, I'm sure they'll continue to do that. But the big thing is fundamentals. And that was something that they got away from against Oregon. You got to block. You got to catch the ball. You got to
tackle,
run your routes, do basic things. I'm just talking about on offense.
On offense, yes.
Offense, it seemed like they kind of got away from a lot of that when the game was out of reach, and just weren't doing the things that had made them, even though they haven't had a ton of success on offense this year, the success they've had has been because they've been making simple, basic offensive plays.
Yeah.
And they really struggled to do that. And, hey, we could see Jaden Rashada in this game. He's taken first team snaps this year. I think that'll be a nice boost to this team. And hopefully we'll see DeCarlos Brooks when he's in the game, when he's playing. This offense seems to just have an extra giddy up, extra boost, because he can break off some nice runs.
Yeah.
Look at that game he had against Washington State as a perfect example. So if those two guys are able to suit up, I think that this offense has got a chance to
Rashada took first team reps. He took first team reps. I think it was yesterday. And it was still thud. They're not under. They're never going to hit the quarterback. But my point is that they're putting him in that position now. And I see one of two scenarios. He's either coming in if Trenton gets hurt. Actually, one of three. The first two are probably the most likely. He either comes in with Trenton gets hurt, or Kenny tries to shock and awe U of A quickly and start Rashada. Because they haven't seen him and they don't have film, and they're not preparing for him. They're not preparing.
No, they have. He hasn't played since second game of the year. So I doubt they have much. They don't have much film or prep on him.
It's not just that. It's he's not game ready. He's not. He can't take. The ability to take hits. That takes 3 or 4 games, before that really starts, and lots of practice.
For most players, yes.
Yeah. And we all like the big arm, the big ball, but if you don't give a guy time to get those for that to set up, it's all for naught. So this is all really predicated. The game's always went up front,
Yeah.
and I know everybody's has great hopes for Rashada, but yeah, I think you have to set your expectations. That Trenton's going to start this, and Trenton's going to be there until he's either not moving the chains or he's hurt. That's most likely. But again, Kenny has shown himself to be very innovative, and trying to keep other teams really
He
at a
does
disadvantage.
the unexpected. He prides himself, I think, on that.
So you go asymmetric and you start Rashada maybe.
Yeah, it could certainly happen.
Well, but you still have to stick to your game plan. In other words, just because he's playing doesn't mean you're going to be throwing all long balls. That's not. But it certainly puts you back on your heels. You have to play him honest now for the long ball strike. Trenton threw an awful lot of long balls in the Oregon game. We just had guys who just didn't get. And by the way, they weren't reads; those were catch and throws to a spot.
Yeah.
And we had guys who never got there, or guys who got there and they touched their hands, they didn't catch it. So it's a whole different thing. It's all predicated on how much time he has. And I'm telling you, he just didn't get a lot of time in this against Oregon, and so it's all done up front, folks. I know everybody would love to see Trenton throwing lots and lots of touchdowns, and they wonder why he hasn't. It's quite frankly, we're playing freshmen and third stringers on O-line this year, guys. But no, you're absolutely right. Scheme and execution is very, very important. And making them one dimensional. I mean, I can't agree anymore with what you're saying here. Fafita is the best quarterback I've seen from them in quite a while. I think he's got more raw talent than probably the last two coaches had.
Probably, yeah. I'd say probably maybe since Foles.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, the upside or the ceiling on him is really high. So I'm with you. You need a big defensive effort. We're going to have to run blitz to keep him uncomfortable, and we're just going to have to do the job on tackling. We were just not getting ourselves in position to tackle.
Right.
Lots of reaching instead of getting your feet in position.
Body tackling. You can't, and against some of those athletes that Oregon had, you cannot arm tackle. You got to get a body on them.
There were people who ran right on them, and you'd swear to God we had somebody on them, and they put a little move on you, and they were breaking out of it. Yeah,
that's what I said. They made Bucky Irving look like Reggie Bush.
Yeah,
some of the moves he was making.
We haven't, guys. This whole turnover thing is just perplexing to everybody.
Swarm to the ball.
So assists.
Yes.
You want to be the first guy to make the tackle, but then you want a swarm around that. So this is something we've talked about over and over. This is a complete enigma to everybody. Why we don't have more turnovers, and it's I talked to Marv Lewis about this, and he says you got to get yourself in. I said the most
position to make turnovers. Yes.
Exactly. He says if you're not in the position to make the turnover, you can't get a head on the ball unless you're fundamentally on the man. You can't arm reach and expect to strip it out. Your highest percentage is putting the hat on the ball.
Right.
So I think if we win the turnover battle by 2, we've got a pretty good shot. And obviously, Trenton needs more time. So those are my 3 keys. We need a big defensive effort, especially expect that blitz to the linebackers to be blitzing, and force fumbles, whatever means possible, and keep TB clean.
Whatever it takes. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go.
Yeah. Our score predictions. I got U of A winning by a couple touchdowns. Unfortunately, I just don't think ASU's, especially if we don't see Jaden Rashada and they keep playing like they have as far as pass protection and inability to run the ball. Maybe hopefully we'll see DeCarlos Brooks, and that'll help a little bit.
Sure. Right.
I still have U of A winning 26-14. I hope I'm wrong, but
it's 12 points.
That's kind of how I see it on paper going.
Yeah, it's 12 points. It's not quite 2 touchdowns, but 12 points. If you miss both your extra points. I see
I'm hoping U of A will probably move the ball, and I'm hoping ASU will dig in around the red zone and force some field goal.
I just think because of the nature of the game, the fact that our kids are not going to roll over. I just know the character of the kids, and these coaches will have them ready for this game. If you're going to have them ready, Kenny, more than any coach we've had since, probably going way back to the Cush era. He's an Arizona State guy. He understands the importance of this. He is not. I mean, we had to. I mean, I'm not kidding you. In the Booster Club, we have the coaches come and speak to us every week. And the very first thing we ask these coaches when they brand new coaches first year in, first question always is, do you understand the importance of winning this game? And they all go, yeah, it's a rivalry game. So no. This is not your normal rivalry game. This is Army Navy. This has bad history attached to it.
And I think Todd Graham understood that. And say what you will about Todd Graham, he had a good record in this game, and and that was but he had guys working on U of A practically all year.
He did. He schemed all year. Paul Randolph was a really good schemer too, by the way. I ran into his daughter at the tailgate. Paul Randolph really understood it.
Our good friend, the late great Chris Chick,
was
on staff, and one of his jobs was specifically to help prepare for U of A, and that was Graham made it a priority because he knew it instilled pride in the fan base when they could beat their rival, and he understood that. And that's something that not every coach has made even with their records. Cutter had a good record against U of A. Erickson's was less so. I mean, he was about 500, but he didn't appreciate anything. Herm did, even though he had a 3-0 record, he wasn't always, the most, he didn't instill pride in you when it came to this game necessarily. I think he understood it, but he didn't. I don't know.
It didn't.
Herm was such an enigma when he was here. Yeah. You really weren't always sure what he was thinking, what he was feeling.
Because he delegated so much. Everything was delegated off of him.
Yeah, but I mean, just at the same time, though, it was even with his record as good as it was against U of A and whatnot, just he didn't really feel it. He didn't really have that pride and that that sense of that uplifting feeling when you beat U of A with because Herm felt like it was just another game for him.
Yeah, the next to last game for Todd Graham, the next to last season for Todd, when they got where the team quit on him down there. I will tell you this was inside information. But I'm just telling you, there was a number he was supposed to hit as far as wins. He didn't get it. They didn't have the money to buy him out. Okay,
right.
I mean, he had the same.
That's why he came back in 2017. Yes.
Well, again, it was a money thing, and he had a number to hit that year, and because he knew he couldn't get to that number after the UCLA game, and you could see it in his face in his postseason in the post-game conference. His answers to the questions were just out of Pluto, man. It was really weird, but you could tell he knew he's not going to be retained, and he wasn't going to get us over the hump. So that's what this game does.
They still got the team up to beat U of A that year. So
and Dirk Cutter won Dirk Cutter won the game. That's his last game on the way out.
2006. Oh yeah. I mentioned it. I was there. I remember.
But ultimately, why coaches get fired and replaced is because this game's really important, because it means you can finish, potentially winning and go to a bowl game or do something important. But it also really means it's revenue. It's a lot of things. It's recruiting. It's it's bragging rights. It's a lot of things, but it's your ability because it comes last for you to show that you know how to coach and scheme a team all year long and beat them. Even if you don't have the horses, you can still beat them with scheme.
It is the biggest game of the year, regardless. It's the biggest game of the year, the rivalry game. It's bragging rights for the years throughout the year for the fans. Yeah, it's pride. It's especially in a game like this. This is ASU's bowl game because it's the last game of the year. They're obviously not going to a bowl game. They had the bowl ban already. This is their last Pac-12 game. There's a lot riding on this game. Just because there's no tomorrow. This is ASU's bowl game. It's a lot of these guys. The last game they'll ever play. Yeah. So, you got to go out there and leave it all on the field.
You don't want
I really hope that those ASU players do.
Yeah, there's been some former players that have been stopping by talking to these guys this week, and I know that it's all good, but eventually they've got to reach down and play for each other in this game.
No doubt.
So that'll about do it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. And you know, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And yeah, 1 o'clock kickoff on ESPN from Tempe. We will certainly be there. Cannot wait. Love this game every single year. It's great. The rivalry matchup. Always a fun time. And certainly leave your comments below on your favorite Territorial Cup memories.
This is
we
wrong.
always love to hear from our fans.
It's 1:30. That's my dyslexia there. It's 1:30.
Yes, it is one.
Yeah, not one. Well, and quite frankly, it'll be 3 minutes after the hour anyway, or after the bottom of the hour. But yes, it's meet the kiddies, man.
We cannot wait. Yeah, we cannot wait. No pity for the kiddie. You know, like I said, records, numbers, tendencies, it all goes out the window. For how many times were people wrong about on predictions in this game?
No.
Seems like every single year somebody's wrong, somebody's losing money because you just never know. There's some wacky, crazy stuff that happens in these games. It's rivalry matchups. Everything kind of goes out the window. It's all random. It's all wild. Anything and everything can and will happen. So definitely tune in, and we will be there as well. Hope to see everybody out there. So with that in mind, we say good night. Go Devils. Forks up. No pity for the kiddie.
No pity.